All right. So, talking about beverages, really prior to reading the chapter, we spoke briefly about focusing primarily on non-alcoholic beverages. Okay. Um, by show of hands, who in here is under the age of 21? Okay. So that might have some reason as to why you maybe didn't consider a lot of these different beverages as part of an integral part of hospitality. Okay. Um, I know me personally, when I was over 21, wine was not something that I drank on a regular basis. I didn't drink it all really to begin with. And you don't have to be in this industry. Okay. But it is important that you understand not only how the beverages can complement the food that we produce, or if you are in a establishment like a bar that pretty much only serves alcoholic beverages, it's important for you to understand the legal requirements so that you're staying within the confines of what is legal as far as serving alcohol. Okay. It goes beyond, um, it's really important because alcohol service, well, I'm not gonna say that, I'm gonna say alcohol, beverages in general is where we make a lot of the money in the food service industry. Okay. That soda we sell for 250, 350, even sometimes $4 now, 3.99, right? That soda doesn't cost me that amount of money, but it allows me to make up some profit on that beverage so that I don't have to overprice my food to make more profit on my food. Okay. So I can price my food more moderately. And so that's why it's really important, beverages in general. Now, alcoholic beverages typically cost more money because they have more ingredients in them, if it's going to be like a mixed drink. Okay. Um, but there are laws around that. The Texas Alcohol Beverage Commission, TABC, sets guidelines and sets laws that people have to follow. And if you don't follow those, if you're breaking the law, that can mean major lawsuits, not only from TABC, but if somebody were to be overserved at your establishment and then they cause an accident, then your company and that bartender are also can be held liable. So it is something that is something that really needs to be addressed with some. I don't want to say I want to say respect, but we need to understand that those laws are there for a reason. Okay, and if we don't follow those laws, then our organization, our establishment can get either shut down. Um, we could potentially um, be involved in a lawsuit that could cost a ton of money. Okay. Also, you've got the human side of it. So if there's some kind of accident that occurs, then there's usually some kind of injury that's also going to occur. So we don't want to cause that for other people. Okay. But we're going to focus primarily on how the different categories of beverages are created, and then also how they might pair with food and how they might impact the service of food. Okay. So I am, just for the sake of um, there we go. Just for the sake of the recording, I'm gonna have you guys use a microphone when you are sharing your information. So wine is first, so we'll have you all go first. And I'm going to go ahead and take my head out so that my phone can pick up. Okay, go ahead. When you hold a microphone, we're not holding it like a DJ, okay? You don't need to you don't need to cover the head of the microphone, but you do want to kind of put it closer to your face, right? You don't hold a microphone down here. Go ahead. Okay, so I actually make wine. My family and I are working
not licensed, so we can't sell it. But the basic ingredient, it is two things that you always need in a wine. It's and sugar, so it's not just one. Both of those are needed to actually ferment the fruit. Yeast breaks down the sugar and turns it into carbon dioxide. Tannins, tannins are give the wine body, whether it's light and refreshing or thicker and more intense, like a steak wine. Fruit wines are usually the lighter in tannin. The common ABV range is 11 to 13.5. How should wine bottles be stored? Oh, am I going to that? I'm sorry. Yeah, wait, no, where is that? We do this thing. Okay, tannins, the wine body, whether it's light, refreshing, or thicker and more intense. It depends on the fruit and the amount of tannins that you put in there. The ABV range is 11 to 13.5. That's the most common. So it really depends on, it's a couple of things that balance the sweetness depending on the fruit. So the tannins is what is used to kind of balance it. Yeah, it's an actual product. So it's not, it's wine tannin.
So you add more tannin to less sweet.
Less acidic. So the more acidic the fruit is, the more intense you put. So like if you're making an orange one, it's highly acidic, you put a couple of more to kind of balance. Good. Okay. Did y'all get the ABV? Yes. And then how it should be bottled. Everything needs to be sanitized first. I myself use Star Sand to sanitize. And the actual bottles should be stored at room temperature in a dark, cool place if you're going to store them long term. When you're ready to serve, you can refrigerate them.
And the last one.
Varietals. It's classified by the actual fruit that is used, grapes, like the actual types, the name, the specific grape. And regional classification is the region of where the fruit is produced. So Italy, France, wherever they came.
And I just want to add to that for the legal services on number 3 as well, just to make sure that for that, we want to make sure that everything is being followed. The legal service page must comply with the local alcohol services laws, and that in the U.S. to make sure that the guests must be 21 years of age, and that the legal service, the practice is being checked by the valid ID for these services. that the service, the services and the service are not being served to any intoxicated or underage guests, and that they follow responsible service laws, which is what this our instructor was saying, that they follow the trauma shop law, which makes it very clear that they're responsible for the services. And that basically means they're protected by the legal law, that if the server is serving somebody who's visibly so that's something that also the legal service and standards protects the guest as the guest as the guest as the
Sorry. Give me a second. There we go. Okay. Sorry. We're good. We should be good.
and also with the serving temperatures of the white wine, just to clarify that as well. The white wine is usually temperature about 45 to 50 Fahrenheit, and then the red wines is usually around 60, 55 to 60, 65 temperatures. So
Yes, exactly. So the other thing too, when you're thinking about the service, so I'll just give you an example of the, make sure I'm sharing my screen. Um, when you're thinking about the service of alcohol in general, when I was a server at TGI Fridays, this was back in 2001. And TABC would actually do, they would come through and they would do like a secret shopper. And so someone from the TABC would come in, because the rule was that if somebody asked for an alcoholic beverage, you had to ask for an ID if they looked 40 years or younger. And so I had server friends who would take a drink order, and then if they did not ask for an ID, then when they got back and served that beverage, that TABC employee would give them a red card. And that red card was instant firing on the spot, because they did not follow the guidelines of IDing anybody who was looked 40 years or younger. If you asked for an ID and then you went to get the beverage, and then you came back, then you'd have a green card, which means you got to keep your job. And they usually would just leave a tip and then be gone. That was it. It was just a test to see if you were following the rules. And so it's very important, because as a server, I mean, that's your livelihood, right? And your TABC license is suspended. So then you can't go be a server anywhere else that serves alcohol. Just a couple things to note. I thought this was really interesting. I learned in a professional development class I went to a couple of years ago. So the different wine bottles that you see up here on the screen. So on the far left, on the far right, you have the sparkling bottles. Okay. They actually add additional CO2 to those bottles, and they're usually corked. The next one is the Bordeaux, which is traditionally a red wine. And the reason why the neck of the bottle looks the way it does is because red wines typically have the most amount of sediment in the red wine. So as you pour it, then this little edge right here, as you pour it, it actually catches that sediment, so it doesn't go into the glass as you're drinking that. The white wines don't typically have that, so they don't have that there. Now, it used to be, prior to, I would say probably about 10 or 15 years ago, it used to be that you could determine the quality of a wine based on how it was bottled. And what I mean by that is, it used to be that if you had a cork, then that was a pretty reputable bottle of wine. If you had a screw top, then that was like a twist off top, then that was usually more aligned with a cheaper wine. That's not the case anymore. Um, a lot of wine today that is produced is actually meant to be consumed within a year to 2 year time period. So the age of aging wine for decades is not always practiced. Now, there is still some that is produced that way, but the majority of wines that are mass produced for consumption are meant to be consumed within a year to 2 years. Um, and so, if the cork is in there for too long and the bottle's upright, the cork dries out. So that's why you'd often see bottles tilted forward to keep that cork, the moisture in that cork. One of the other reasons why we went to twist tops is because there's a shortage. I mean, cork is a plant, and it's pretty expensive to harvest. There was actually even a winery I went to back in 2009 in Portland area up on the Pacific Northwest, and they had glass toppers. So instead of a twist top, it was just a glass topper that fit in there, and then it was sealed. So that's really kind of a unique way. And then the one last thing I want to talk about wine is that if you are over 21 and you do enjoy wine, I highly recommend that you check out down at Hemisphere Park. I highly recommend you check out Rerooted Winery. It's in Hemisphere Park. They do a lot of conservation, and so they actually keg most of their wine. And so most of their wines are served on tap. In the first year that she was open, she actually saved 9,000 bottles from going to the landfill. Because in San Antonio, we don't recycle glass. They say you do, and you can put glass in your recycling, but it just ends up getting tossed out. And so that was something that was really cool that they bottle their wine, they keg it, and then they can bottle it to go in that regard. So, all right. Is it really 10:40? Oh my gosh. All right. Beer. Let's go with beer. Thank you.
Hello. Howdy, everybody. Alrighty. I'm gonna try and just answer all the questions as we go down, and I'll give you guys a little bit of time to write down. But I'll start with number one. The four core ingredients are going to be water, malted grains, hops, and yeast. The process. So, what is the role of yeast in creating ales and lagers? The yeast ferments the sugars, which gives the beers their alcoholic content, gives them the carbonation, and gives them their flavor.
Just repeat that one more time.
I'm still on there.
Yeah, just repeat it.
My bad, my bad. All right.
That's okay. Just repeat it one more time.
So for the second part, the role of yeast in creating ales and lagers, the yeast ferments the sugars, which gives beers their alcoholic content, gives them their carbonation, and gives them their flavor.
And the four core ingredients are
Water, malted grains, hops, and yeast.
Hops.
Hops.
Yep.
Hops. Hops.
Beers, the cover.
Alcoholic content and their flavor.
all right.
So hops, what flavor do they contribute? Hops will add a bitter flavor and aroma. And then malt, it'll give it color, sweetness, and a body. All right, and then the IBU scale, it's used to measure the bitterness of a beer. And that is important because it allows the servers to describe the differences between the beers and give recommendations. So the IBU scales. So they're important because they allow servers to describe the beer and then give recommendations. All right. So for number three, the common ABV range is 4 to 8%. And then what is the ideal serving temperature difference between stout and pilsner? For stout, it is going to be 45 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit. And then for pilsner, it's going to be 40 to 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Then the different glassware affects the beer's aroma, affects its carbonation, and its flavor.
What was aroma carbonation?
Flavor. All right, number four. How are draft beer kegs and bottled beer stored differently? Beer kegs, they are stored in temperature and pressure controlled environments and have a longer shelf life. So stored in temperature and pressure controlled environments with a longer shelf life. Okay. And bottled beer, it's going to be cheaper, but it is susceptible to light and temperature degradation too. Must go about right now. Okay. You're reaching to effects. Yes, we don't really to them, so oh. Just no rush, just whenever. Temperature. Alrighty, what is the risk of skunking and how is it prevented? Skunking is a photochemical reaction when UV light hits beer. So it's a photochemical reaction when UV light hits beer, creates a foul skunk-like taste and smell. All right, move on to number five. What are the core differences between ale and a lager? Ales are fermented with top fermenting yeast at warm temperatures. So they're fermented with top fermenting yeast at warm temperatures. Lagers, on the other hand, are fermented with bottom fermenting yeast at cold temperatures. All right, so your ales will commonly be fruity, spicy, and have a higher alcohol content. So fruity, spicy, and higher alcohol content. While lagers can be crisp, smooth, and have a lower alcohol content. And then finally, two types of ales will be a pale ale and a brown ale. Pale ale and brown ale. Two types of lagers will be a pilsner and a dunkel. Spell those for you. A pilsner lager is Pilsner, and then a dunkel is Dunkel. And that is it. Thank you.
All right, so in the interest of time, we are not going to rush our spirits. So we'll have you all present first on Wednesday, and then we'll talk a little bit about non-alcoholic beverages because that is a really important part of the industry. And then from there, we will also then move on to chapter 10, where we're going to talk about clubs. So I think we're caught up to the chapter readings at this point. So we'll finish up that discussion on Wednesday with the clubs. All right, thank you all so much. Bring your papers back on Wednesday, please.